Hello, and thank you for joining the Champion Within podcast, your premier go-to spot for unlocking your winning mindset. Whether you're an athlete looking to elevate your game to the next level, a coach leading the charge, an enthusiastic parent cheering from the sidelines, or an educator molding young minds, the Champion Within podcast episodes are packed with value, sharing the tools and strategies to unlock your potential and rise to new heights. Hosted by mentor, coach, and mindset leader Kate McCauley. Let's sit back and enjoy today's episode while discovering your champion within. And now, here's Kate.
Hey champions, thank you for jumping in today and hanging out with us. Today I am bringing you a volleyball coach that I got to hang out with. I think it was during the fall season of this school year. I put something out on Instagram. I'm going to be honest, I wasn't really exactly sure what I was doing, and a coach of mine for my business suggested that I do a whole rebrand because I was doing this here and that over there with different things on the podcast, Instagram, LinkedIn. Really, the Champion Within is everything that I've been doing with people in sports, in the corporation world. Then I started doing it with the podcast. I changed Instagram. When I did that, I wanted to get to love some local team. I did a contest, I guess we'll call it. I was just trying to give some free workshops out so I could get the Instagram known because, I don't know what I'm doing, if I'm going to be honest. Coach Amber is here with me today on the podcast. I loved hanging out with her team. As soon as I saw that she won, we jumped on a call. I think it was probably the next day or 2 days after. When we were talking right away, I could tell she was the type of coach that I was like, thank goodness it was a normal coach that won this, because that was a risk. When I put that out there, you just never know what you're going to get in social media world. I love talking with her for so many different reasons. I know that this episode is going to bring things for my coaches, for my athletes, for the parents of athletes. We're just going to see where the conversation goes. Hi, Amber. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you. Yeah, thank you for all you do. I should have also mentioned, in addition to being a volleyball coach, you're also a teacher at Springfield. I think I'm probably just going to let you tell everybody who you are a little bit.
I am a former volleyball athlete. I started playing when I was in second grade. For the local club in Media, I started doing weekend camps. And that's kind of how that all started. And I just realized that volleyball was it. So I ended up just playing year round. That was my thing. I went to Millersville originally and played there. I also graduated from Springfield to start. I went to Millersville originally and played there. And then I ended up transferring to Westchester to finish out. I was going for exercise science and I wanted to be a physical therapist, which I loved my previous job, but this job just suits me so much better. Being a teacher is amazing. I didn't realize how much I would love it and how much it is like coaching. I think it's just made me a better coach, and then vice versa. I think coaching has made me a better teacher. So
I did not even know that. I knew I would learn some things too. I didn't know that you were I figured you were maybe kinesiology or exercise science.
Yeah.
What did you do in the exercise science world before you were health and phys ed?
Originally at Millersville, I was going for athletic training.
Okay.
And then I ended up actually breaking my ankle in a Ninja Warrior course at a trampoline park.
Okay.
And I transferred home, went to Westchester, and I decided to go physical therapy instead of athletic training. I just loved it. So I got my undergrad in exercise science from Westchester. I worked at ATI Physical Therapy for 4 years.
Okay,
and
cool.
I did all my applications to become a PT. And then I was like, you know what? I don't know if this is for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, wow, okay. Really cool.
Changes, yeah.
You're exactly where you're meant to be, I guess, even if it is on a Ninja Warrior course sometimes.
Right.
That was so popular. I don't know what year that was for you, but I remember that show being so popular. I actually went to one in Philly with my son, who's now in college. They were probably elementary school at the time. This place literally set up a Ninja Warrior course inside in Philly. It was for kids, but everybody was all about that, you know?
Yeah.
Such a big thing. I don't know if it's as popular anymore.
No, it was definitely an embarrassing moment. Yeah.
He really wanted us to build one in our backyard. And my husband was like really close. I'm like, are we seriously going to do this? I feel like we need to like put a halt to this, but that's crazy how things happen like that. First, let's go back to the volleyball piece. You said you started in second grade and that was in media. We're both here in the Delaware County area. I know I have listeners actually all over the world, but if you're not local to us, so that's right outside of Philly. Was this a youth program, a club team? How did you get started at a second grade level?
He actually is still a ref. He's still around. Liberty Bells is the club that I went to. I ended up just they had like youth clinics on the weekends and they're actually a club. So I think I guess it was second grade to like fourth grade until you can start playing in fifth. My mom had played in high school. So she was like, let's sign you up for this because I hated soccer. I was not a soccer star. I ended up just playing volleyball. I loved it. And then I played for like a couple different leagues when I was younger. I did CYO and Mystique, which was a great club. It was amazing.
Do you remember a time, even maybe a little story when you were little where you remember, I really like this. I just heard you say soccer wasn't for me. And my three kids, because I played sports, my husband did, we signed them up for things just really to get them active so they're not sitting playing video games all the time. There was definitely sports where it was, this is not his or her area. And we were okay with it, even if it was maybe some of our favorite sports. Do you remember a time where you just loved it?
The district that I actually teach in, they have a youth program. I remember my parents signing me up for that, and that was twice a week at night. And I just remember coming home after practice the next day, and I begged my dad every day. I was like, we have to be in the driveway. We're going to pepper. That's like the passing.
Okay.
And I was like, we're going to do it every day. Every day since then, he was forced to go outside, which I think he secretly liked it too. After that, I was outside every day touching a ball after school.
Yeah, you just couldn't get enough.
I couldn't. Yeah. And then they signed me up for everything there was. And I was like, I don't even want to play another sport. This is it.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I credit your parents too. That's awesome that your dad was out there doing that for you. And I think you're right. He probably did love that. I'm thinking of my dad right now. That was basketball for him. He loved if we would go out on the driveway. Oh, you want to play pig? You want to shoot foul shots? Well, he's there. I think that's awesome that they saw that and just let you keep doing that instead of saying like, oh no, well, maybe let's do this, that. Do you have any advice for parents now that you're a coach? And we're going to kind of get to how you even got there, but thinking of you as that little volleyball player and even that whole journey, do you have any advice? Because let's be honest, and you don't have to say anything here, and I'm not going to say anything about anyone specific, but the youth sports world can get a little crazy sometimes.
Crazy. Yeah.
Do you have any tips for parents so they can let their kid love the game like that?
I definitely think my parents did a really good job of signing me up for literally everything and anything. I say that all the time. I love that I tried everything out. They were also super realistic. They never said anything at a game, but we would get in the car and I'd be like, I don't know if that was great. And they would be like, yeah, I don't know about that one. I think them being realistic afterwards was awesome. But I think the biggest thing was at the practice or the game, wherever we were, they were not involved. They let me just be present in what I was supposed to be learning, which I think is tough for some parents today. I think that's super important.
Yeah, be quiet.
Yeah.
It is hard. I think it comes from a place of love. Somebody's going to send me a message like, why are you saying youth sports is so crazy? And believe me, my kids do all the things. I'm in the snack bar helping. I'm part of the craziness in some way, helping out. There is a point where you have to say, he or she is not loving this. And you're over there screaming at him. Like you said, they're just letting you be in the present moment. That is the hardest part because they want to solve, they want to fix the problem. If you could just let them be in the present moment. Do you see that now as a high school coach? Do you have any tips for your own players to tell them how they get in the present moment, or maybe something you did as an athlete that you didn't even realize it was mindset, but you just did to get in that present moment?
As a coach, I've had conversations with other coaches. I still almost think I'm a player sometimes. I think I'm on the sidelines all the time and I'm trying to talk to them and work through things with them. I think one of the biggest things I realized this season is I don't have to talk through every play. That's their job. I think that transition for me, mindset wise, is super important. I think like as a coach, you're always learning. I think that's one of the biggest things that we try to teach the kids, be receptive to feedback and like, you are a student in this situation, but so are we. I think that's something I've definitely learned, is that I need to let them play their game. I'm coaching during practice and not as much during a game. Not that I'm not saying anything. I think for them, getting into the mindset and getting ready for that competition, I think one of the biggest things I've seen a change in is our pregame ritual. Whether it's something they need to do, they always do something as a team to start. If they have something ritual wise that they have to do individually, they go and do that on their own. I've made sure that this season we have set aside time that they have the availability to go do that.
Yeah. You and I actually spoke on our pre-call and you talked about the pre-game routine. I loved how you were telling me that the captains are pretty much in charge of that in the locker room. I thought that was really cool. You did honestly say, maybe I would like them to be a little more serious. We talked about that when we were in our workshop, and they honestly owned it and said, you know what, we could really get more focused in there. And I think just having that conversation is a way to even solve that. But I love that you give them ownership there. That is teaching so many more things than just that volleyball mindset of get into the game. Of course, that is why you're doing it, but they're learning so much more there. I'm wondering, is that something that you came up with or another coach that gave that to you? Where does that come from for you?
This is only my third season at Springfield. I've been coaching for 8 years. I think in previous years, at least at Springfield, I kind of ran that. I do end of year meetings with all of my players. And I think one of the critiques that I got one year that I actually loved, it was that they would like to hear more coming from their teammates and how they can work together as a team player wise, instead of hearing what I want from them. I said, I think a perfect opportunity is before the game to talk about, even if it's just one goal that you want to meet during the game. I'll ask them that goal in our first huddle. I think it's super important for them to team lead in that situation, because post game, I'm going to come in and I'm going to tell them what our strengths and weaknesses were of the game. For the beginning, I think it's important that they all are ready to be on the same page.
The fact that they can give you feedback that you asked for that. I got to tell you that not every coach I work with does that.
I don't think a lot of people love it, but
well, because it's hard
for
you to take that, right? I'm not sure if you just said, you might have, and I missed it. Did you say this is anonymous, or how do they give you that feedback?
No, usually it's not anonymous.
Okay.
They come in, it'll just be one-on-one. And I
you are brave, and so are they. So you have a little one-to-one chat with each athlete.
My seniors that are graduating are the most honest. I
that.
think they'll tell me what I need to hear. I will straight up ask them, like, tell me the positives and negatives of this program. I want to know what I can do to make it better. All the information they give me, if I have to relay it back to other coaches or whatever it might be, that's anonymous. Sure. I just want to hear, if you have a critique about something that we do as a coach, how can we coach you better? I think that's one of the biggest things that coaches don't realize. You coach one way, whereas kids need different aspects of coaching.
What I was picturing was when I've taken a course, a college course or any type of thing where they're like, do a little feedback form, which I do like too, if somebody's doing that. But the fact that you're even having a conversation with people, we're doing this in a studio that's virtual. We're both jumping in on a link. If I was with you, I'd be like, this is amazing. I'd be grabbing you like, you need to tell all the others. Go tell the coaches. If this is a coach listening right now to the podcast, stop whatever you are doing if you are not doing this. Amber and I both have just said, this is not easy for the coach or the athletes. I know the reason why those freshmen, sophomore, and junior athletes are not going to give you all of it, because they're a little nervous. They, if they really put it all out there, there's a chance that the coach may say, like, who's that? Do you think you are telling me that? Because that's a little scary. I myself, I'm going to speak from my own experience. I don't want anybody sending me messages. This is not about my children. Okay. Let's just put that out there. This is about me as an athlete. There have been coaches in my former life. I'm too old to be on a sports team now, but as an athlete, I would not have wanted to say to that coach, if I knew I was returning the next year, that this is not going well, because I would have feared not only the reaction right then in the moment, but the retaliation that would have come and the lack of playing time, how it would have impacted me and my future role as a member of that team. Thank you for doing that. I really am kind of obsessed with this now. And I would love to figure out a way to tell the others that it is okay to do it. Honestly, though, I think that it is not something that is just an end of the year kind of thing. This has got to be who you are as a person.
Yeah, I mean, I check in with them. We probably have 2 individual meetings throughout the season. And I think the biggest part of being a coach too, we'll get into competitiveness, but being honest with them, especially with girls. I think if you're beating around the bush and you're like, well, you might be able to get on the court at some point, they're going to have those high hopes where you need to be honest about strengths and weaknesses and where you see them on ranking within their position.
Right.
And how they can make themselves better. I think that's more important for the middle of the season. And I also like to see how they think it's going. But the end of the season, I like those critiques. And I think that helps me learn too. Sure. I know there's kids that I can't critique during a game. I had one girl tell me, you can't speak to me when I serve where I mess up serving. And I'm like, great. I love knowing that. That's something I would never know.
Right. And this just goes right back to what I was saying. This is who you are as a coach, because that athlete clearly feels comfortable saying that to you. And I didn't dislike this coach, but I really would not have felt comfortable because I would have been like, I just don't know how the, response would have been taken. It would have been received defensively, like I was attacking them. And this is something that a coach has to work on throughout their season. You have to do the internal work yourself. I tell coaches this all the time. I do a coach's corner program, and I love working with athletes. I think that's very important. But if coaches aren't involved too, when I was at your workshop, for example, you were there, assistant coaches were there. I think athletic director, there was like so many people there. I was like, come on in. I love it. If I'm somewhere and people don't stay, I get really worried. I always tell people, you're going to stay in the room. You should hear what we're doing. It's important to do the internal work yourself as a coach. All of us, it doesn't matter how long you've been coaching, can grow and learn from this. That athlete telling you, like, I can't focus if you're saying stuff to me. Some of them can joke around. When I coached basketball, I had a girl who stole an apple juice one time. Long story, but they ended up calling me. I was teaching in a different building. She was an 8th grader. It was a middle school team. I was mad. There was consequences, but as time went on, it became a joke between us. I was like, do I have to bring the apple juice? It just became a thing. Even when she was in high school and I ended up teaching her in phys ed class, still jokingly, I would whisper, do you need apple juice today? She's having a rough day.
Yeah.
But you can't do that with every athlete, and you have to build that rapport. So what would you tell a coach who's thinking, you know what, Kate and Amber are right. I should probably try to take that feedback, because honestly, you will win more games if you can do this with your athletes at the end of the season, throughout the season. What would you suggest how they could start?
I would definitely, I think beginning of the season is super important to start. As soon as you're done tryouts, just meet with them and tell them a strength you see, a weakness you see, and one goal that they could work on for the season, just to let them know, I see you. Because sometimes you feel like you're lost in a number. There's 45 girls running around the gym. Just let them know you're watching and seeing everything they do. And I think girls knowing that I'm paying attention and I'm making sure that I notice what you're doing in the gym is super important to start that.
Yeah, I love that. And that is easy to do.
Yeah.
It's not as scary, everybody. Yeah, it's not as scary as the feedback. You'll get to the feedback. But honestly, just like you tell your athletes, and this is not for you, Amber, because you do it already, but those who are listening, just like if you're working with me or if you're not working with me and you've told your athletes, feedback is a good thing. I tell people all the time, unwrap it. It's a gift. Even if it comes messy. I joke, my one aunt's beautifully wrapping a bow and the present looks great. My other aunt just throws it in a Target bag at us, but there's an awesome thing inside there. The feedback isn't always pretty from a coach or from your athlete, but there is something in there for you. You tell your athletes that if you're a coach. I know you do if you're a coach. So you need to take that advice yourself too, if you want to grow and you want your team to be successful. I'm really glad you brought that up. I am going to be really obsessed with that now and figure out a way how I'm going to teach all these other people who could really benefit.
Right.
All right. Let's go back to your journey. Let's leave the little volleyball girl. And although I think she probably always stayed with you, the love of the game, and move to, you said you played for Springfield High School, right?
Yep.
And then you ended up going into college to play. Tell me something about that right now as a high school coach too, thinking about that. What are we going to give our athletes and our parents as a tip there? Maybe something that you would recommend and something that you look back now and think, wish I had done something a little different there.
I definitely think my high school experience was a little different. I started out my freshman year. I came from Catholic school, so I had no idea what I was getting into coming to public school. And one of my neighbors, who is my best friend to this day, was like, it's going to be the worst. You need to condition. You have to run. From that moment on, when I heard that, I was like, I will be running every day. I will not be the last one. I will not be getting sick on the track. So I think like my freshman year, I came in 5th for the mile. I was like, there is no way I'm losing. I think having that, whereas someone was holding me accountable, because my parents would be like, oh, are you getting out there and running? You know, you have this coming up. I think holding me accountable was the biggest part of my high school sports and me being accomplished in high school and being able to move on to college.
So your parents did that pretty much for you? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, they were great with it. I mean, I did it for myself as well. Because I knew I had big goals for myself. I wanted to make varsity. And then once I found out I made varsity, I was like, there is no way I can play varsity. I think holding myself accountable, and then them too. I had friends that had already played on the team, and then also my parents. So they were like, let's get out there. You have to do this today. It was good. Not in a forceful way.
Sure. Accountability is important. If we don't have accountability in all areas of our life, we are more likely to just be like,
right.
We don't really need to go today, or we will make an excuse. It's easy to be comfortable when your brain will just say, you're okay. I want to keep you safe, so to speak. So it's important. If you want to level up and do better, you need a push sometimes. You're lucky to have that. If somebody doesn't have that, you can find that. There is a coach out there or a teammate or somebody. Sometimes you just need to ask. Say, I want to improve. I want to be better. Especially at the high school level, you're not getting paid $1 million when you're out there coaching. And middle school, high school coaches, they're there because they love this. They want to be there. They want you to do better. Even if they're tough on you, they're doing it because they want you to be better. If you say to them, I want to improve, this doesn't mean that they're going to send you to the Olympics, but they will keep you accountable if you ask. And you got to do your part, of course. I like that accountability piece. When you were heading off to college, was it an easy decision for you, or did you have a lot of choices? I see you shaking your head now. So how did it go?
So I had applied to 12 schools.
Oh, wow.
I talked to all 12 about playing volleyball. I'm so indecisive still to this day. A little bit better, but I was so indecisive.
I got to ask before you go, 12 because you visited them and you loved all 12? Or how did you?
I just didn't know what I wanted to do. Okay. I was torn between going away and not wanting to go away. And I had this mindset where if I could play at a higher level, I wasn't going to accept anything that was less.
Okay. Different divisions and stuff. Okay.
Yeah. So, which I think I could have chose more wisely, but I think it came down to the last day. I didn't verbally commit until the decision day is May 1st, and I didn't verbally commit until like April 28th. Mm-hmm. Time was ticking.
Okay. Now you said I could have chose more wisely. What do you mean by that?
I think I like rushed my decision a little bit. I loved the girls that I met in college. I just think I should have chose somewhere that I would have excelled like a little bit more academically and like had looked into more of the academic side, deciding what I wanted to do. I went through like 3 different degree changes when I was there. So
do you think that was because you just weren't sure, or it was volleyball, or are you not even sure how that happened?
I think I was almost so set on playing volleyball that I didn't think about anything else. So then I was like, I have to find somewhere to play as opposed to having to find a career. I had no idea what I wanted to do, which definitely made it tough.
Yeah, I mean, that's overwhelming. You have to make a decision for academics, for sports, and you're a senior, you're trying to enjoy the year. You got 12 choices. I mean, that's a lot. What made you finally pick Millersville? Was there a tipping point there that you were just like, okay, I'm going here?
Which is funny about Millersville, I went to the open house and I turned to my parents and I was like, I hate it. I will never go here. I don't know why that changed, but I think when I did my overnight, they ended up putting me with 2 upperclassmen and 3 other freshmen came. I actually just loved the experience of the overnight. I loved the girls that I hung out with. The freshmen coming in seemed phenomenal. So I was like, I think I could see myself fitting in with this group of girls. And I think that was my deciding point, which I still didn't decide until way late. But that was my point, that I think I was like, this could be the right fit.
Felt right. Yeah. Okay. You said you did love the girls that you were there playing with. Yeah.
Yeah.
What year did you transfer?
I ended up transferring after my junior year.
Okay.
So my freshman year, the last day of preseason, I got a concussion. I made it through the 3 weeks of preseason, got a concussion, and I had already had shoulder issues. And after those few weeks, between the concussion and my shoulder, it ended up just being a done deal. I ended up student coaching after that.
Okay.
I played a little bit in the spring season, and then my sophomore year, I ended up student coaching.
Looking back, do you have any lessons you learned from that experience?
When I got hurt, I was so frustrated because I was like, I literally made it through the 3 hardest weeks of my life.
Yeah.
And now here I am. I think having that injury, I almost went through a grieving period.
Oh, I'm sure.
I was like, and I was frustrated. I was like, I can't even turn around. Now I'm so behind everybody. And then once I knew I was going to be out for the entire season, which I didn't even know if I was going to play that first season anyways, I think that's kind of when I sat down and I was like, I don't know if my body can do this. So it ended up just being a grieving period. Once I found coaching, I feel like that turned me back to loving the game. Yeah.
Yeah, a little silver lining there.
Yeah, so everything ended up working out. So I was up at Millersville, and Spooky Nook is right there.
Okay, yeah. I've been there for basketball tournaments. Yeah. Okay.
I ended up coaching club there as well as being a student assistant. So
while you were injured. Okay.
When I started coaching club, I was like, oh my God, I could see myself doing this forever.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's almost like you were exactly where you were meant to be.
Right. Which is so weird.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really interesting, the way things play out like that. Your freshman year, you didn't play. You're coaching. Did you get back in your sophomore year?
Yeah. Spring season of freshman year, I ended up playing a little bit. And then I went and got an MRI for my shoulder. It was partially torn. I ended up not playing my sophomore year and just student coached. Then I kept coaching at Spooky Nook.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I definitely agree that it's grieving, really, and you have this sense of identity. Do you remember doing anything that helped you get through that grieving that you were experiencing?
I think the hardest thing, I had to still go to everything, which I think was super tough being around. But I think that was almost the best thing for me because I was still with the team and I still kind of felt a part of that. My coaches still treated me like an athlete, which was nice. I feel like although that was tough being around it when I couldn't play, it was the best thing for me.
So stay in it. And then really the coaching. That's a recommendation a lot. I had a Penn State group on, and the athletic director said, when my athletes leave, she often tells them, go ref or coach and get involved because you do miss the game in a way. It's kind of cool that Spooky Nook was right there and it worked out for you to do that. You ended up coaching with them again. Did you get back and play with Millersville at all before you transferred? No, you didn't. Okay. No. So how did you decide you were going to transfer? You said Westchester, right?
Westchester, yeah. So I toyed with it every year. I applied. Every semester, I think I applied to transfer.
Oh, wow.
Okay. This is far away from home, which is only an hour and a half. I was like, this is far. I don't like being up here by myself. And I think the friends I made through the team and my roommate, some of the best people I've ever met. I think that kept me staying there. My final decision was when I wanted to go for physical therapy instead, but all just kind of worked out. And then the injury happened. So it was nice to be at home anyways.
And did you play volleyball with Westchester?
No, I did intramurals.
Gotcha.
I still play in adult leagues.
Yeah, cool. It's kind of crazy how it all just unfolds. Now you're coaching back at Springfield and you coached club in between. Did you start teaching at Springfield first and then coach, or how did it work out for you?
I was still working at the physical therapy clinic when I started coaching here. My coaches that came at my senior year were leaving and I ran into her actually And she was like, just so you know, I'm going to be going out on maternity leave. I think I have to give up coaching. And I was like, oh my God, like I just moved home. This is
like full circle.
great. Yeah. So it ended up all working out. And I started coaching here. I had previously coached club at Spooky Nook and then also coached for a club down here called Equinox. I was there for a while and I've been coaching. This is my 3rd season here. Next year will be my 4th. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Let's talk about you as a teacher and a coach. And in the beginning, I know you touched on this a little bit, that being a coach and being a teacher, both of those things almost feed off of each other and you get better at both. Tell me more about that.
I think being here all day is great because I get those connections. And I think I get connections with other students who don't play the sport, which is awesome. They come to our games. It builds an atmosphere, really. Then I think vice versa. I think it makes me a better teacher because I've realized how important encouragement is. Teaching them, you can't just give them a PowerPoint and just monotone, give them all the words that are on there. I think it's important as far as my tone behind it, the way I present things. And even kids learn in different ways. So same thing goes for coaching kids in different aspects, you know.
Yeah, so true. I have teachers that listen and sometimes they come and say, how are you doing this when you were a teacher? Teachers have so many skills that they do not give themselves credit for, and coaches as well. Coaches are really teachers. And when you're a teacher and a coach, you're like a superhero. You have all of these things because you have to differentiate for each kid. You've mentioned it a couple of times. Yeah. You have to know each kid. Let me just say this. You don't have to. You can be a terrible teacher. You can be a terrible coach. There's plenty of them in every school throughout the United States, not just in here, Delaware County, anywhere. They're all over the place in every job, not just in teaching. This happens. If you're going to be good as an educator and a coach, you have to differentiate and know your athletes and know your students. And you just start to, I think anyway, that you look at them, you notice their body language, you see things that they're doing. And you, as a teacher, you start to pick up on that. And your brain doesn't turn off when you go to coach and vice versa, right. When you're coaching and you're teaching. You don't have to be a teacher to be a coach, but when you're in the building that you coach in and you have that rapport, it's the good, bad, and everything in between. You can celebrate if they do something amazing in the hallway, if they did something great in biology, math class, whatever.
Right.
It's an extra layer for that athlete and for the coach. And if they do something stupid, they're teenagers, they're going to mess up, you know. You can walk down the hallway on your prep and whisper, "Are you kidding me? I love you, but are you kidding me?" Yeah. Or see them in the cafeteria. And I could always just give an eye, "Really?" And they'd be like, "Oh no, she sees what we're doing." Let's be real for a minute. Stress is something we all deal with, right? Before work, during, after work, it's always there. But here's the thing. Not every stress-busting tool works for everyone. I always say if we were all the same, life would be boring. That's why I put together the Stress Buster Guide. It has a few different options. Some you'll love, some maybe not so much. And that's okay. I want you to find what clicks for you. It's totally free. Honestly, it's my most downloaded resource for a reason. After the show, I want you to go to the show notes, click the link, and grab it so you can start feeling more in control. No matter when stress hits you, there is a tool for you to calm your nervous system. You deserve to make that happen for yourself. I'm rooting for you always. Now let's get back to the podcast chat. If we're thinking about parents, I know you get to work with your high school athletes and they're moving on, some of them. Some of them decide to play volleyball beyond high school. Some of them don't. Do you have any tips for those athletes or for the parents if they're thinking about next level play? Do you recommend that they do club and high school?
Yeah, so I definitely recommend doing club. I think more college coaches come and scout you at club just because everyone is in one tournament and there's like 40,000 kids walking around one tournament. Something that I've implemented recently as far as my varsity kids, as soon as they come in, they have to draft a letter to a coach. And they never have to send it if they're not interested at all in playing, but they have to draft up the letter. And they have to set up, we use Huddle now. They have to set up their Huddle profile. So it has to be shareable for me in order for me to be able to send it to a coach. That's something.
So are you making your plaque like that says like legend? I'm just curious. Are you doing that yet?
Yeah.
Are you chiseling it in somewhere in the wall? I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it for you. Anyway, go ahead.
So they have to set up this profile. They write the email, and then I kind of touch on it in our parent meeting. But ultimately, it's accountable for the girls. Like if you want to do this, you have to be
type it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody brings their computer. We sit in a room. They type it up. I have a drafted template that they can use. Yeah, that I used. Which is probably updated now.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's really on them. If they want to sit there when we're in the room, a coach actually shared a list of every college that offers volleyball on the East Coast.
Love it.
All divisions, all their emails. So if they want to choose some to send, that they can do it in that moment. I haven't had a ton of girls interested in playing further at the high school level, more so club that want to continue playing. I do require them all to do it regardless of what their goals are.
Even if they don't decide to play after high school, that letter in general, when they're reaching out to someone for whatever they want to do, whether it's an email or a letter, LinkedIn, however they do it, it's going to be some sort of communication. It's probably going to be in the form of some sort of email letter type thing. So it's a skill in itself, whether it's a volleyball coach or somebody because you want to do something, a job, an internship, whatever it is. So I love it. That's really cool. Yeah. I think that's a great tip to give to everyone. Oh, if you were to say to that girl who does decide, thinking about your journey, what tip would you give her? If she's got 12 in front of her, what would you give her to say, okay, this is just my experience. You don't have to do exactly what I did, but if I was doing it, this is what I would suggest you look at.
I think I didn't start early enough. I know that there's people reaching out to like freshmen that I have that are like, you have to start getting recruited now or you're never going to be recruited, which is not true. I just think I didn't explore my options of continuing to play early enough. And I don't think anyone really like pushed me into thinking about that until my senior year. So not that I force them into playing or anything beyond high school, but I do always remind them of this. You're going to end this and it might be the end of your career, or you might want to continue. And that's something to think about and just keep in the back of your mind that it might be wise just to, keep that in your pocket that you might have options to go somewhere.
I don't know if you feel this way. I was a teacher for 20 years. I would tell my students, and I tell my own children, one's in college now, and I have an 8th grader and a junior in high school. It goes so fast. High school goes so fast. When you're playing your sport, especially, and your grades, this matters when you are a freshman. You can't screw around and be an idiot and think it's not going to carry. You have to start thinking, you don't have to decide right now. My daughter is always the one to be like, oh, stop, let me live my life. And that's not even about sports. That's just life in general. Like about, do you want to go to the prom? Let's start thinking about things. It's like, let me live my life. I get it. But they don't understand that. When they're leaving middle school and coming to high school, they don't even get the GPA or that maybe you should start thinking about. And it's a lot. It's overwhelming. But the sooner you start thinking about it, the less overwhelming it will be, because then you can start to really think what feels good. That when you get to that senior year, you're not like, I don't want to be here. And then you end up being like, I guess I'm going here. And it all did work out for you. And it does. We're exactly where we're meant to be. But there are ways to do it so you're not as stressed. I need to tell people just at least start thinking about it.
Starting early. And I think I've had a lot of parents reach out to me, like even kids that I haven't coached at club. And they're like, hey, they don't receive it well from me. They just think I'm on their case.
So true.
Do you mind saying something? And I'm like, sometimes it just takes like hearing it from someone else.
100%.
And that's what I always try to remind them. I didn't know it was going to be my last game. And if I could go back and redo it all, I would do it again.
Right. Yeah.
So Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I think you and I talked about that with the mindset stuff. I could just tell from our first conversation and when I met you just briefly when we had that workshop, you are saying and doing, and especially now during this conversation, a lot of the things that I teach and do within mindset. It was funny when your girls were like, "Oh, wow, this is great." And I'm like, "I know your coaches are doing this,
Yeah.
It is a different voice, and the same thing for the parents. That happens all the time when I go into a school or athletes or even a business. The owners will be like, I'm literally saying, I know you are.
Yeah.
It's just a different voice. And the same thing when a parent comes to you, it lands differently. When you're growing up, you look more to your peers, you listen to other people sometimes. So I think that's so true. And if your kid is rolling your eyes like my kid, no matter what it is, sports or life, go to someone else. And they're saying the same thing as you, a couple different words. I love that you're willing to do that too. Give that piece of advice to the parent. Could you please just talk with them? I mean, that's a gift in itself to have someone say that to your kid. Thank you for being that person. I want to make sure we talk about this one piece. We went and did a workshop and then we went down to the gym. We did some visualization. I got to love your, really the whole program. I was talking with the varsity girls at the end. You and I were talking and it was really about our own personal journeys as athletes and teachers and things. We were both really connecting on a piece where we said, female athletes feel like they can't be as competitive sometimes. This isn't for every female athlete, but I notice it when I'm out at workshops. I've noticed it when I've been coaching, even when I was a health and phys ed teacher. They almost feel like they have to hold back and they can't show up and own that true greatness and be that hardcore competitor. I would just love to hear your take on that and if you see that.
I feel like I see it all the time. I don't know if you've ever heard the clip where Gino from UConn, like the basketball coach, is talking about body language. I feel like sometimes we mistake that for having a poor attitude or body language when they're not locked in and ready to be competitive. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just that they don't understand how to make that switch and they're uncomfortable doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the biggest things is the environment that you create. I had a coach my junior year of high school. Her dad was coming and helping out and he was so on my case and I was like, I can't listen to him ever again. God rest his soul. I love this man. Looking back, he was the greatest thing that ever happened to me because he forced me to do things and I was
what
like,
did he do?
He lit a fire under my butt. He would just take me off and be like, are you kidding me right now? And sometimes I need that, which I found out that style of coaching really works for me. He just pushed me about things and he'd be like, well, you need to be faster. And I would run faster. And then he'd be like, you're still not fast enough. I think him adding that fuel to my fire just made me more competitive. And I think creating an environment where you're not necessarily pinning athletes on each other, but if they know that there's some sort of competition and rivalry, whether it's self-competition that they're trying to meet a goal or whether it's against another teammate that they're trying to get a position, I think brings out that competitive side in them.
To own it. I heard someone say something recently to benchmark your 2024 or an area of either your athletic journey or any area of your life.
Yeah.
To benchmark where you are and say, I'm going to beat that. That's my area where I'm going to improve and that % better even. I love what you said that you're not necessarily pitting them against each other, but that healthy competition is okay. Then to also say, when someone does win and succeed on your team, that we all win. Because when somebody gets better, she can only bring you up and make you better. I hate what is happening in a lot of spaces with female athletes and just females in general that this knock each other down, even on their own team.
Right.
This is why you're losing. I have to sometimes come in and say it as the different voice and say, you're the problem.
Yeah.
All of you are the problem because you think that you're leveling up, but you're knocking each other down and you're not leveling up that way. You're focusing on this negative and that's what your brain will focus on. It's frustrating because when you get out into the world, women need each other.
Yeah.
Not that men don't need each other, but I have found with my own boys, I actually coached when they were youth. I coached the boys team, which was always interesting. When I would beat the dads in basketball, it didn't go over well because they'd be like, oh, who's this chick? And then they figured out, like, Danny's mom, they know how to play basketball. But anyway, in the beginning, it did not go over well. But I really only coached at the youth level. So I can't really speak of older boys to coach them or men. But it's different. I've seen really great athletes hold back in practice and in competition because they don't want to be the best because they're afraid someone else is going to say, like, you're showing off. Who are you? Yeah. Just push them. A simple thing of saying, what are you doing?
Right.
You can be faster. You can do this. And do you think it lands? I know you have, it's Coach Brian, right, on your team? He went to Ridley, which is where I went to work with their swim team. He was a swimmer. Your girls were telling me about Spirit Week. I actually mentioned it that they dressed as him and their coach was laughing. I don't know if they swam together or knew each other, but I had mentioned it. Do you think that you as a female coach and Coach Brian, or maybe if you see other coaches, do you think it's different in any way?
I do.
That competitive female part.
He'll tell you that I am probably the most competitive person he knows.
Mm-hmm.
I bring it to a different level. I think the girls know that, but sometimes I feel like they brush that off and they're like, oh, she wants us to do this. Brian is just as competitive as me, but we both put it in different ways. I think sometimes I'll turn to him and I'm like, I need you to say this. I think it'll go over better. And I think he turns around and he's like, this is what I need from you. I didn't see it the first time. I think they're like, oh my God, Brian said it. I think just the different coaches saying it and recognizing that we're kind of all on the same page, even if I already did say it, really works for them. I also think his demeanor is a little bit different than mine. He's good cop, I'm bad cop. Yeah. I think sometimes him saying it for the girls, they'll be like, well, if Brian said it, then it must be true, you know?
Yeah, I think the coaches that complement each other definitely make a difference there. And I think it really just depends on personality too. I've had some male coaches for different sports actually say that sometimes they're a little leery to push the girls because they feel, am I coming in too hot there? And I'm like, well, you got to get to know the athlete, but don't go easy. I never like to see that you're going easy because she's a girl. And they're like, oh, okay. They hold back. It's an interesting dynamic. Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you want to tell our listeners? If you could give them a tip that you want to throw out there into the world of either volleyball or teaching or anything that you're like, I wish everybody knew this.
I don't think anything new that you've said. I think one of the biggest things that like I took away even from like my own experience and after talking to you was that goal setting. I think that's like so important for whether you want to be competitive, if you just want to achieve something or be better. I think that's one of the biggest things. Like I sat down with myself and I was like, this is my next goal after I meet something.
I love it. Yeah. Because we can always level up and it's 1% better. I love it.
Yeah.
I do ask every guest this last question here for season 4. It's a new one. If you had the opportunity to go back or forward to any moment or point in your life, where would you go for just one day? What are you going to do that day?
One day. I think I would go back to my junior year self. And I think
in college?
No, my junior year of high school. I think I would like tell myself to get it together. I think it was a shell shock going into college that, you know, you're a small fish in a huge pond. I think telling myself to like work a little bit harder and push myself for what I really needed to do is what I would do.
That conversation we were just saying that we need to have this conversation with these girls. I love that.
Have you ever heard of a NARP? You know what a NARP is?
Yes, a non-athlete. Yes, explain it because there are some people listening who don't, but I know what it is. So
it's a non-athletic regular person. I tell them all the time, I'm like, now I'm just a NARP. So you need to like sit back and think about what you want. They're like, she's definitely crazy, but
yeah, it's so funny. I actually was talking about that with my own kids and they're just like, all right, you're like, I'm like, this is like a thing.
It is, yeah.
I think that conversation, I don't know if you would listen or not. It's a tough one. I always think if I went back, would I listen? I don't know. It's an important conversation to have.
Yeah.
To say, all right, this is what you need to do or push yourself this way or that way. So, but I do think even if you did or didn't have that conversation, you were exactly where you were meant to be, even if it was not always the greatest in some of those moments. I appreciate everything you do as a teacher, as a coach. honestly, I might start etching in something somewhere because just this conversation, I didn't even know all of these things. Thank goodness I brought her on the podcast. I'm sure we will definitely be talking. I'll be stalking things you're doing. I love seeing the Instagram. And tell everyone, what is that so they can follow the Springfield team? What is your Instagram? We'll put that up.
I think it's Springfield-Volleyball.
Okay. I'll put it in the show notes so people can follow your team. We definitely have some people in the Delaware County area too that'll want to follow. And I'm sure your athletes will be listening to you, sharing all of your epic wisdom. Thank you for hanging out with me today. And I wish you and the team continued success.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for hanging out with me on the Champion Within today. Make sure you go down to the show notes, steal all of this wisdom from Coach Amber, and follow the team.
Thank you for hanging out with Kate today. And whether you're going to coach, teach, cheer from the sidelines, or hitting the field yourself, remember, mindset is everything. Don't forget to follow the show for the latest episodes, as we all need a little extra motivation, humor, and sanity in our busy lives. Now, go and unleash your champion within you, one step at a time. We're always rooting for you.